All right, guys. So today we got something really interesting. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the brand Rollei, but this one is particularly interesting because it's new. So Mr. Wu is going to explain the history and the evolution of how the old one from the old days to this brand new one made very recently that's being marketed today. Okay, so here's Mr. Wu.
Okay, so today we are going to feature the Rollei 35 autofocus. So before that, this is the original one, Rollei 35 with a collapsible lens. And weight-wise, 300 over grams, 35, 350. The new one, from far they look almost the same. The body a little bit thicker. It is not that heavy. 2 plus, about 100 gram difference. Okay, so the first Rollei 35, at that time it was about the smallest full frame compact camera. So this small size, I think the size is like the size of a pack of cigarette, Lucky Strike or Camel, about that size. Internally, it just got enough space for the film. So the film with a right hand winding, okay, a sliding cover. This was not Rollei to start with. The inventor of this camera, Heinz Wass, worked for another German company called Virgin. They have the SLR camera called the Edixa, also a design by Heinz Wass. He was a camera designer, engineer, call it. So he was working on this one at the tail end of the Virgin company. The owner was already about to close shop. And then when Heinz was showed him this drawing, the owner was not too happy because he said, you took time and my tooling to come up with this, but I am just about to close shop. So the Virgin company folded and Heinz is without a job, but he had a drawing for this camera. So he knocked on a few doors to see who would be interested to build this camera. So the first time he knocked at Kodak. And Kodak said, no, we are not interested. Then he went to the Leica company, Lights. We like to make this camera. They say, no, we don't want. Eventually, Heinz found job in the Rollei company factory. At that time, you know, they are well known for the twin lens reflex. At that time, they don't make other cameras, so they only have twin lens. And so he worked there, joined the company, and he worked. And as the owner, Mr. Piso, was passing by, he noticed the drawing of this camera. And he was curious, and he looked at it, and he said, hey, let's build this camera. So they took the resources of Rollei and manufactured this camera, so it became the Rollei 35. So the first one with a 3.5 lens, collapsible. So you have to wind up first before you can collapse it. So this is the one. You got two dials here. That is very similar to the twin lens Rollei, one for aperture, one for shutter speed, and have a built-in light meter that uses a battery. This light meter came from the German Gosen light meter company. So because only thing is scale focusing, no rangefinder. It was sales focusing. Then you focus it right, it was very sharp. So this smaller lens is a Tessa. Later on, they built a faster lens, 2.8 40 mm. That one is a sonar, bigger lens. And before long, this camera grew into many versions, and it became a cult camera. And unfortunately, at that time, there was an onslaught from the Japanese camera maker, was knocking against the German camera industry. So Rollei thought if they want to be competitive, they might want to shift the production to the Far East. So they partnered with Singapore. And Singapore at that time was a labor-intensive industry, coming up country, starting from zero, no resources. So they were at first in garments, and they wanted to move up into high technology. So they partnered with Rollei. They set a plant there in the 70s and produced this. So they sent a batch of the Singaporeans go to Germany to be trained, and they come back with a new skill. They continue this. So this camera, you got two versions: the early version made in Germany, and the later version made in Singapore. Because in the minds of the collector, they look for the German one, but actually, in terms of the features and the technical things, they are identical. So both cameras will take the same quality picture. Actually, you just have to swap the cover and you put the German one. Because the printing is on the back cover. So over the years, they have a few. They have a 3.5, they have the 2.8, then they got a simple version, and then they got some commemorative ones. And then after 10 years of operation, the Rollei company in Germany filed for bankruptcy. So likewise, the factory in Singapore also got to shut down, unfortunately. But in the 10 years, the Singaporean people gained the technology transfer. So after the closure of the factory, these people trained in electronics and all this were ready to move into the next industry, which was doing the hard disk drive. So it was a gain for Singapore, from a labor-intensive garment factory to high-tech electronic industry, and they move up. But unfortunately for Rollei, that's the end of the story. Then along later, nearly the year 2000, they came up with a new series, the Rollei Classic. They make some improvement. They took the shoe from here and put it on top, but then they clad the covering with exotic metal, gold, platinum, and whatever you have. So the price went up. Then after that, end of the story. So if you want to own this camera, the only way now is to buy it off in the used market. So you can buy this one, you can buy the 35, and all the various models. And as long as it's well kept, actually it works very well. I got this by now nearly 7 years ago, 7 or 10 years ago, I bought this, working. It's just like the day it was made. Then recently, a company called Mint, M-I-N-T-H, in Hong Kong. Their first few project was actually, they took the old Polaroid cameras and redo it with modern function and manual control, or some folding camera, and they put instant film. So they were doing that, and then the idea came for them, why don't we rebuild this Rollei? So they rebuilt this Rollei. So from a distance, they look almost the same. The difference is this one is called the Rollei 35 AF, autofocus. And this lens now no longer collapsible, is fixed. Instead of 40 mm, is 35 mm, 2.8. And this one uses the new autofocus system by LiDAR. That is, they use this for car, for detection, and a lot of new technology. So this is a new way of doing the autofocus ranging. So you still have the sliding back cover and the hinge metal plate, and the loading is still from the right to the left. But what is new is that the contacts for the DX coding. so you don't have to set the ISO. It's auto setting. The winding and rewind remain the same. So you got one long stroke and one click, and this is a rewind. But because this one now is electronic, so there's a little door here. You put a small CR2 battery that will power the camera, power the shutter, the autofocus system, and so on. So this is a sliding cover you put in. So this camera, the chassis is mainly plastic, but the top and the bottom is metal. So the top and bottom metal, the rest are plastic. The firm pressure plate is metal. So yeah, you got a modern camera. Easier to use, so you can set on auto exposure with plus minus, or you can set the aperture, or you can select the shutter speed, so flash and so on. So this modern one, so the price in Malaysia is 3499. So this one is a remake of the old classic Rollei 35 AF.
Wow, thank you very much. Beautiful camera.
Yeah,
I think everybody will want one after this.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
All right,
Wu.
welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.